There was once a little girl named Emma who lived in a small village surrounded by fields that had turned dry and lifeless. For as long as she could remember, the land had not seen rain. The trees stood still, the flowers had wilted, and even the birds had stopped singing. Every day, Emma watched her father stare at the empty fields with worry in his eyes. He used to be a farmer, but now the soil was too hard to grow anything. The village was slowly giving up. People were packing their bags, leaving in search of better places. But Emma didn't want to leave. She loved her home, the old oak tree by the river, the hills, and the sunsets that painted the sky golden every evening. One morning, while walking near the dried-up river, Emma found a tiny seed lying on the cracked ground. It was small and fragile, but something about it felt special. She picked it up gently and whispered, "Maybe you're meant to grow here." That day, she dug a small hole near her home and planted the seed. She didn't have much water left, but she poured a few drops every day. Her father saw her one afternoon and said softly, "Emma, the ground is too dry. Nothing can grow here anymore." Emma smiled and said, "Maybe it just needs someone to believe it can." Days passed, then weeks. The sun was harsh, the winds were dry, and nothing seemed to change. Still, Emma watered that little spot faithfully, even when people laughed at her. "You can't bring life back to dead soil," they said. But Emma didn't listen. One morning, after many weeks, she ran outside like always and stopped in her tracks. A tiny green sprout had pushed through the dry ground. It was small, but alive. She screamed with joy and called her father. He couldn't believe his eyes. For the first time in years, something was growing again. Word spread quickly through the village. People who had given up came to see the little sprout. Something inside them began to change. Soon, others started planting too, seeds of their own, bits of green in the brown dust. They carried buckets of water from faraway wells, protecting each tiny plant. The land that once seemed hopeless slowly began to bloom again. Months later, the fields were full of color. Flowers danced in the wind, and crops swayed under the bright blue sky. The river even began to flow once more, fed by the rain that had finally returned. Emma stood by her tree, now tall and strong, smiling as her father placed his hand on her shoulder. "You planted more than a seed, my dear," he said. "You planted hope." She looked at the field and whispered, "Sometimes the smallest things grow into miracles." And from that day on, the people of the village learned that when everything seems lost, even one act of faith, one seed of hope, can bring life back again. Even in the hardest times, hope is the seed that makes life bloom again.